The news of Cyberpunk 2077 being delayed has caused so much ire from many gamers around the world who cannot wait to play CD Projekt Red's latest and greatest futuristic role-playing game. And this is after the official account stated that they're not going to delay the game any further, which causes even more disappointment, especially those who had a holiday appointment at the time the game would have been out. Personally, while I am indeed on the Cyberpunk hype train, I am an adult who can think of many ways to spend my free time while the train marches on towards its destination, whereas these people are like nagging children behind my back, constantly asking the adults, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" No, we're not there yet, you annoying little harpies. If you're gonna keep on nagging us, I think we should take a quick stop near that bridge. The Cyberpunk train unfortunately has to make a temporary stop to make sure that the game is ready for everyone, and thankfully the train stops us on a really promising destination, namely Ghostrunner, a cyberpunk action-adventure and platforming game that is not Cyberpunk 2077, but promises itself to be a nice little bit of appetizer before we get into the main course. So how was Ghostrunner? Well, let's get into it. Ghostrunner is the story of a futuristic cyber ninja unit of some sort named the Ghostrunner. The cyborg ninja that we're playing as is named Jack, no not that one, and was assigned to protect a VIP, no not that one. But then the respective VIP got killed by another cyborg, no not that one, and our cyborg ninja got wrecked and has to be rebuilt from scratch to deliver justice. No, not like that. This game is developed by lots of developers actually, and the game looks incredible for a not so AAA game. The game manages to capture that cyberpunk aesthetic quite well. There are tons of neon covering the city, lots of glittery lights highlighting the desolate wasteland of the game's setting. It's not really new per se, but it's pretty well designed. All of that is complemented very well by the game's soundtrack. All of them are 80s synthwave that will definitely fuel your adrenaline rush as you get through the game. So props to the visual and the audio team. Now before we get into the gameplay proper, let's talk about the weakest element of the game, which is the story. Just through the story premise alone, the game is pretty freaking cliched, and it's something that we've seen a million times already. And it is. You can pretty much guess the plot twist coming from a mile away. But that's not the only problem that I have with the story. My biggest problem with the story is that it's incredibly disconnected with the gameplay. A good chunk of the game's story is told, not shown, told. The game tells you the story through audio conversations between Jack and whoever is on the end of the line. Whatever actions that we do throughout the game, the result of them are told to us by the characters on the other end of the line. This would have been fine if the dialogues are engaging or well written. There are many games that rely on dialogues to drive the story. Heck, there are games that only have monologues and they're still incredible. Bastion and Thomas Was Alone came to mind. I highly recommend those. Unfortunately, Ghostrunner is no Bastion or Thomas Was Alone. In fact, the dialogues in general are not very good. The game's dialogues are 50% expositions and 50% cliches made by template cyberpunk character archetypes that we've seen a million times already. It's always characters saying, "We have to do this or else this will happen. This place used to be so good and then bad things happen. I'm only doing what is necessary for the species," etc. It's rather monotonous and lacking emotional punch, like listening to a really boring tour guide. What's really unfortunate is how the player character is actually not silent. He does have a voice and he does respond with the people he's talking with. It's just that reacting is all he does. It's unfortunate because I do want to see more video game characters that are not silent protagonists, but it's even worse if the character being voiced is no different if the character is silent. All I'm saying is, it's just wasted potential. There are lots of opportunities here, but the game just misses it. And speaking of dialogues, one of the enemy units are the cyborg ninja types that you can only beat by parrying them. The dialogues from these cyborg ninja units are lines straight out of JoJo.
ほう、向かってくるのか。向かってくるのか。やれやれだぜ。やれやれだぜ。
Also, the game starts with a pre-rendered cinematic, which looks really cool, but the game ends in a 2D animated cutscene, which is really off and not exactly consistent, but okay then. But hey, if you're into this game for the writing or the story or the JoJo references, then I think you're not in the right mindset. This ain't CDPR tier quality, and this shouldn't be treated as such. So how about we talk about the main meat of the game, which is the gameplay. What is the gameplay of Ghostrunner? The game promises to be a first-person action platformer. The objective from level to level is to get into one platform after another through running and jumping both on the floor and on the walls. Throughout the way, you also encounter enemies that you can wreck with one hit, but you too can also get wrecked with one hit. So you're gonna have to use your first-person cyborg ninja skills to get through point A to point B, while dodging all sorts of enemies, ranging from people to giant robots. So that's the gameplay premise on paper. In practice, this game is a combination of Mirror's Edge and Hotline Miami. You got the first-person platforming while running and jumping from platform to platform from Mirror's Edge, except there are little to no sections where you have to shimmy from one platform to the next. You just run and jump, which is infinitely better and smoother, or at least with the mouse and keyboard. The first-person platforming experience with the controller is probably not as smooth. From Hotline Miami, the combat is a one-hit kill fiesta, where the enemies die in one hit and so are you. Rest assured, you will die on this game. You will die and die and die again and again and again. Ghostrunner, more like Cyberpunk Prepare to Die edition. While the combat can be quite visceral, there's a lot of trial and error involved, just like Hotline Miami. Thankfully, the game restarts very fast, a lot faster than Hotline Miami. Just press R and you'd be back in the checkpoint instantly. Even if you got wrecked for 100 times in the same section, the game is at least able to keep that flow and adrenaline rush. I do have some major complaints in the gameplay department. The dashing in this game is unfortunately rather awkward to use. How it works is that you got the ground dash, which allows you to dash in whatever direction you like as long as you are in the ground, and finally the air dash, which allows you to slow time and move yourself away horizontally from the enemy's projectile, or move yourself away in general. The air dash function is different to the ground dash function, as in you can only slow time during the air dash. Why? No idea. Also, when you're done adjusting your position in air dash, you will dash forward automatically. On one hand, it's open for platforming and positioning exploitation. On the other hand, it will result in several unfortunate accidents. Also, air dashing will instantly break the momentum of a jump, so make sure that you got enough lift from your jump before you even make any attempt on air dashing to whatever destination you chose. And then there's the upgrade system, which is absolute trash. How it works is that you have a limited number of slots for your upgrades, and the upgrades are represented in freaking Tetris blocks. I guarantee you that you're gonna be spending a rather unusually long amount of time playing Tetris just to make sure that the space is optimized for the upgrades that you want. This is the only upgrade system in the game, so I don't know why the game has to limit the player in only using some of the upgrades when they might as well get all of them. The game also has skills, all of which are hyped to death with their own dedicated levels and tutorials, but I barely use them because the enemies are all one-hit kill anyway, and using these powers are not as effective as just air dashing myself into them and slicing them open. The levels are pretty linear, but they do have secrets and hidden collectibles that you can grab if you're into that sort of thing. And finally, there are the boss battles. They are free throughout the game, or at least with a health bar, and 4 if you also count the final one. All of them are incredibly tough. The first boss battle is a security system, and good lord, this is like playing Toho in first person. It's challenging, frustrating, but it's also quite satisfying to finish. Thank you for the checkpoints between health bars. No thanks to the second boss battle, because the second one doesn't have a freaking checkpoint and demand absolute perfection out of you. So if you fail, you have to do it all over again. Then there's the third boss battle, which is good, but only if you can figure out what to do to it. And the final boss battle is not really a boss battle, it's more of a platforming challenge through a digital world, and that one is a bit frustrating, but not much of a deal breaker. So as long as you're okay with dying hundreds and hundreds of times, doing lots and lots of trial and error, Ghostrunner's gameplay is pretty satisfying, especially when you pull off all of the stunts and the moves without dying once, or at least on certain sections. That being said, I beat the game in less than 6 hours, so the game is very short. But then again, you can replay the levels over and over again just to get a good rating, and the game is only $30. At the time of writing, is also discounted to $25. $34. So if you think that 6 hours worth of gameplay is worth that price, then feel free to spend it as you like. Now let's talk about the PC port. For some reason, I cannot record the game with NVIDIA Shadowplay, so I had to use mirrorless action instead. The DirectX 11 version of the game runs with no issues, but the DirectX 12 version is prone to crashing, so be warned. The game has a lot of settings to tweak. There's even a ray tracing option in the game if you have supported graphics card. I don't. I'm running the game on my GTX 1660 Ti laptop, and the game runs buttery smooth at 60 FPS all the time with zero issues. And most importantly, thank you for this FOV slider. It's a freaking godsend, and especially if you're playing first-person platforming games. So in conclusion, Ghostrunner is pretty good actually. The gameplay is very fun, it's visual, challenging, and does require skills and reflexes. Some gameplay aspects are a bit awkward, but they're not a deal breaker to me. The graphics look fantastic, the game as a whole look fantastic, the game sounds great, and the music is great. The story is a load of cliched tripe, and there's a lot of wasted potential, but it's not the main point of the game, so it doesn't really matter that much. It's just a really solid game, despite being rather short, and I do recommend it, especially for the price. If you're one of those people who are disappointed with the delay of Cyberpunk 2077, then this game would be a really nice and quick snack before you get into the main meal. It costs $30 and is available on all sorts of platforms. I highly recommend it if you're into something a little bit different than your typical mainstream AAA game. Otherwise, keep screeching on social media, I guess.